Okay, there we go. So we have our September live Q&A. And again, this is really just an opportunity for you ladies to ask your questions, share, anything that you feel is necessary at the point in your journey or where you're at. Maybe you've got questions, maybe you're frustrated, maybe you finally were able to move the needle and you haven't been for a while. And I just really want to see you guys get the most out of this. I will say too, going into probably the next few weeks, I'll be altering because I will have some childcare. And I want to be able to offer these at a time that works. I mean, I'm never gonna be able to do it that works for everybody, because if I do it in the evening, then Aline, we're gonna miss seeing you. And with all the different, coasts, then I may just utilize the one-on-one calls as an opportunity to talk with you guys more on a one-on-one basis and really kind of cover what works or what you need at this moment. So that's kind of where things are going to go, just so you get the most out. There she is. Just so you get the most out of this experience. Hey, girls. Sorry. Your hair looks fabulous, Mona. So do either of you ladies, since you're on here live, do you guys have any questions? I have a few things that I do want to talk about that's been brought up in the group and through email to me. But I do want to make sure that I can address any questions that you guys have right now.
Hi, did you need me? Hold on.
Okay, hopefully they're quiet now. Mona, Aline, you guys have anything you want to bring up and talk about?
Yeah, I have a question.
Okay.
So, I know I haven't been posting that much, but still trying to get a list of the food that I've been testing and that worked pretty well. So now some of the food that I've been testing before that were fine, all of a sudden they don't work anymore. So I feel like I'm back again to the beginning, because I'm like trying to figure out what's not working when I'm still not really combining food yet. I'm still trying to do one at a time. And like lately, I have no idea if it's the hormone or anything. I've been just like going up, very up, like with the weight, and then whoops, goes down. And there's that bracket that I cannot seems to get out of. As soon as I get closer to a little bit under what I've been having, like the next day it's like 3 pounds up, and I know I didn't eat anything out of the ordinary that could make my body react. So I'm like, I'm not sure. I'm kind of confused.
No, it's a very valid question, and I think a lot that most people might be experiencing too. So a couple questions that I have for you. I know what you're doing, but what workout program are you doing, and what's the style of it, just for those that aren't doing what we're doing?
I've been doing MBF and MBFA. So when I started it, I went up and then I went down, and then it kind of gets stable and start going down. So when I stopped, I finished last week, and I was fine. And then when was it? Monday, after I finished it, it's just like shoot up again. Yeah. I was like, well, I was just taking a break. I don't understand why it should go up that way, when for almost 6 weeks it was still fine, going down to a normal level, sometimes going up depending on what I've been eating. But yeah, it's been a little bit weird. I don't understand.
Okay, well, a couple things to think about, and is one, your weight's going to go up when you're doing a heavy lifting program in general, right? And it's not going to be massive, but you're building muscle, right? And we know that muscle burns fat, and we know that muscle weighs more than fat. So you kind of got a double-edged sword, right? Because we want to build lean, sculpted muscles, but we also know that sometimes you could be losing inches and you could be getting lean, but you look at the scale and you're like, oh my gosh, what's going on? But when you're building lean muscle mass, you are, no, thank you. You can go upstairs and go get your books, please and thank you. I asked you to do that. No, thank you. you're building lean muscle, so your muscle fibers are tearing down, right? And so your body's responding to heal those, and it's putting water, right? So it goes into protection mode. And so that's what the fluid is around your muscles, which tends to cause inflammation because your body is retaining water, right? So that's one thing to think about, is you're lifting heavier weights, right? So your body is going to respond accordingly, right? Other thing to think about is when you were losing, obviously those foods may not be the category that's working for you currently. Where were you at in your cycle when you were losing and when you were successful? So what I would suggest is go back to the unit when we talked about hormones, and start going through some of the food suggestions of food lists that are compatible in a general sense to your cycle, right? So if you remember back to when you were losing, where were you in your cycle? And if you weren't tracking, that's kind of something to start thinking about, because there's times that I have to kind of tailor my workouts. Even if I'm doing MBFA, I have to tailor the weights. I increase the cardio, or I just take a pause and I do yoga or bar or something, right? So those are all things to consider. I know it's super frustrating, but I have actually a really good thing I want to read to you guys, because it kind of goes hand in hand with what I got an email from one of my clients too, that's in the group, from Amy. So I want to make sure I share that. So bear with me on that, because I think it'll make sense. But moral of the story, your workouts can be cause for an uptick in weight. Obviously you pair that with your hormones. So go back to that, because there are times of the month that I think that your body is a little bit more revved up and supercharged to accept workouts that are a little bit more intense, like MBF and MBFA, versus times that your body is taxed and overstressed as it is, and not going to be as responsive because it's already taxed and it's in a stress mode with your estrogen levels high, low, depending on where your hormone levels are at, right? So go back and reflect a little bit on that, because that could be really fascinating.
Okay. Well, I know for sure when it's ovulation and when it's the period, I just go up in anything. Whatever I do, I work out or not, it's just go up.
Well, write down diligently, and if you want to send it to me, please do. But I've gone through a couple months, and it's taken quite a bit of work to learn what my body responds to most when I'm on my cycle. So I've been able to lose weight or just lose inflammation during my cycle, but it's been very specific to the foods that I eat. And obviously my foods are going to be different, and what's going to work for you, but just write down and jot down what you ate when you did gain weight during your cycle, because I want to really understand I want to know how much you slept, how much water you were taking in, what your workout was, and everything that you ate, because that will be really vital information. And if we're not documenting that stuff, it's going to be super hard to kind of, reverse engineer the process and really truly understand it. That make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Great questions. Hi, Amy.
Hi.
Hi, Terry. I didn't get to officially say hi to you either. Anybody else have any questions? Mona, Terry, you gals hopped on. You guys have anything burning that we can answer or we could talk about right now?
So I do real quick. So I'm wondering if the MBFA, now that I'll be completing that, if that is too much stress on my body. I can do it, but I'm wondering, remember how I told you I'm just so exhausted in the evenings?
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering if that's something where it drains me too much to do that sort of advanced program. I like it a lot because I sweat. It makes me feel good, like I'm doing something. And
sorry, go on.
And I haven't looked into the hybrid that you wanted to do. So I need to look at that, because I know someone said it's like 60 minutes. And I haven't done a 60-minute workout. Maybe one time I did something. It was a booty one or obsessed. It had been one of those.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I'm not worried about doing it, but I just don't want maybe too much at it. My husband's listening. Go away. Go, go, go.
It's not some squawky kids. So
No,
mine
I don't have any squawky
finally went
kids.
upstairs.
Just the dog that's like begging it. So I'm wondering if that, because I didn't feel so much exhaustion until I was doing the MBFA, then I felt like I had a good break, and then
Mhm.
it just kind of crept up on me again.
So I think that's very telling. Um, I I love the program. I love the format. I think it's a great, like it kind of reminds me of, CrossFit days, but it's too much for me. And so I'm just really pressing to get through these 3 weeks. I think the program was designed beautifully. It was designed beautifully probably for my 20-year-old or early 30-year-old
Mm-hmm.
body, not necessarily for me right now in my state. I sweat like a maniac doing bar and I love it.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to kind of think about what movements, patterns, what workouts motivate you for one, because I think that is everything. And what gives you enough variety that's going to be challenging enough for you to walk away, go, that was a really great sweat. To address the hybrid idea or the program that I've kind of put together, because I bar a size. That's totally not a word, but it's going to be Amy. And I know you're going to love that one. I bar a size a lot. So I take a lot of MBFA and I put it into the bar classes that I teach live. And so same with this, a little obsessed, a little more obsessed, and 80-day obsession. I love using sliders. I love using resistance bands. I love doing something that's a little bit more taxing in a different capacity than doing weighted squats or weighted lunges or shoulder press. Like that's just so boring to me, right? So the workouts the first week are 30 minutes and then they kind of add on a little bit. And then 80-day obsession was way too long for me. So I'll be doing kind of a hybrid, meaning I'm going to knock off probably a round of each segment. And I'm also going to lighten my load. So I get the volume and endurance training, which is totally my jam right now, and still
Mm-hmm.
get that adequate sweat and just the cardio capacity too, a couple times a week. Right. So just go back and reflect, like, when did you sleep the best? When did you feel energized and not in the slump at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, or, whenever you're feeling like complete exhaustion? What programming were you doing that you didn't feel that way? And that's really where you should be kind of focusing on and making your own hybrid or just adjusting accordingly or doing MBF again and just doing lighter weights. I mean, I even told Terry that some of the asymmetrical work, I had to do it symmetrical because it was throwing me off. And to be honest, even the longer workouts were starting to kind of like, I knew that I was getting to my max. So you just got to customize them and do what you can safely.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to be energizing for your body and deliver the results that you would need.
Okay.
Does
Yeah.
that help?
Because those hybrids that you started off and the one that Terry did, I think
Yes.
I felt the best. And not that I'm worried about my weight, just more concerned about my energy. And I think with this MBF, yeah, definitely with the weight, I think catch up to me. So
Yes.
these last few days, I've decided I don't need to go heavier if I can, because I just feel like it puts too much toll on my body day
Mhm.
after day after day for me. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm probably the oldest out of all of you guys. So, and what I'm really proud of is I do it and I finish it. And the only modifications I really do are for the push-ups, because my elbows, I still can't do them. But I think it's too much for me. Just like you said, like with the body of a 20-year-old or 30-year-old,
Mhm.
I felt like maybe that's my issue. I was so exhausted. Like my body was just can't even take any. I have no focus in the evening. None of that. So,
Well, and that's like critical information, right? So you need to catalog that, because you shouldn't be, if you are eating foods that are energizing for your body, right, and for where you're at hormonally, your workouts should not pull that much energy out to the point where you have utter exhaustion at the end of the day, that you can't focus, you don't feel good, right? Like, you should feel good up until the point where you put your head on the pillow and you're like, I am done for the night. So just acknowledge that and use that as information and go, you know what, I liked the format again, you know, but go back to lighter weights. I didn't go anything over 12 and a half pounds. So, and I pushed more volume than I did, again, than repetitions, because I can burn out completely using 3-pound weights doing bar. And that makes me feel good. And I still am drenched in sweat. So that's what makes me feel good and keeps me energized. So just acknowledge that and document that. So when there is a like program or a workout that you start to go, oh my God, this is too intense, pump the brakes, stop the program. Don't go to that workout, you know, whatever it is.
Okay.
Okay.
When you said you were going to, like I said, I haven't looked at the program on those hybrids that you wanted. You said you were going to skip a round or reduce a round.
I'll probably shave off a round.
Okay.
Yeah. So if it's 3 rounds, I'll do 2.
Oh, got ya.
Yeah.
You'll just fast forward it and go on to the, because
Yep,
I don't know how
the next
to.
block.
Okay.
Yeah. And we
All
can
right.
talk more about that on the fitness stuff.
Okay.
If you need me to kind of finesse that. So
Yep.
Happy to do that.
Okay.
Okay. Terry, you have anything before we dive into Amy?
I know. Yeah, no, I'm just want to glean whatever I can glean. I've been really, really sick this week, so I've been doing the brat diet. Yeah, I literally thought I was having a baby on Monday. It was so bad. So, but
Terry.
I'm feeling better now, but I think it's a combination of overworking out, going into menopause, eating stuff I shouldn't have eaten over the weekend, too rich, and just way too much. I literally been out and I had been so nauseated, but I'm really thinking about how I need to really approach the eating with my cycle. So this week, while I haven't been feeling well, I've been actually researching and trying to do a menu for my cycle. And so I got to do something, because this is the second month in a row that I had the pain without all the extra, because we were actually on vacation, but I still had, it was horrible. So I'm just trying to glean whatever you have to say in answering these questions, and then trying to do that. So that's where I'm at.
Okay. Well, I have some good thoughts on that. So I will share that as well at the end.
Okay, great.
Amy, do you have anything? I know we had a little email exchange, but is there anything you want to, that's come to mind since?
No, I'm same. My favorite thing is to get on the Facebook page and see the amazing recipes that this group comes up with. Like, because I'm still only like in week 2 or something of testing, 3 maybe, but no, 2 of testing. So like I'm tentatively like, can I try flour today or whatever, so seeing all of you that are much more advanced and really good at this is inspiring. So no, I emailed you probably an exhausting list of questions, thoughts, and things. I think my interesting twist for everyone else that doesn't apply is that I'm also doing it with my husband. And so in the morning, I'm like, woohoo, down 0.4. And he's like, I gained 1.5 pounds, or, we're different, as we should be, because we have very different bodies. But it is interesting to see how foods affect different people, I think. And
I think that's such a valid point, because it'd be so amazing just to like have the most earth-shattering plan that works for everybody that is cookie cutter, right? And I know that's probably the most frustrating thing with this is that it's not cookie cutter. And the reason why I try to continue to emphasize, and Amy, I know we've talked about this, a million times, is that we're all different. Like you and Phil aren't going to respond the same way, clearly, on some things, right? Yeah. Because he's a male and you're a female, and you guys have completely different DNA.
Yeah.
Genetic makeups, experience, or, history with food, cultures, your parents ate different things before you were born. And all of that starts to kind of wire how you get to be responsive to food.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's kind of the fascinating thing. So that's why this is like the emphasis on truly taking the time to understand, you know, read and glean, as Terry says, from what other people are doing or what recipes are working for people, or, you know, continuing to be patient through the testing process, which I know Aleen's kind of having the frustration with, but we go back to, okay, well, hormones play a huge role in everything, right? And so hormones and your thyroid, the amount of insulin that is being produced in your body, and responding to any sort of, which we'll talk more about insulin next week, but just any sort of carbohydrate response in your system, right? And sometimes it's favorable and sometimes it's not. And sometimes of the month, it's going to be more favorable than other times, right? So, you know, to answer one of your questions, I know you asked, say, you know, is this can I expect to see these kind of results for a long-standing amount of time?
Yeah.
And the short answer is yes, but it's not going to be every single day, right? Like your body's going to acclimate at some point. But also I have a really interesting thing I wanted to share with you guys. And it was so perfect, Amy, because it came up on my Instagram and I was like, oh my God, this is exactly what I need to share today. So it was perfect for me that I was able to read your email, and I wanted to kind of talk more openly about it because I know you're not the only one that has this kind of question or needs to hear it, right? So, but long-term, yes. I mean, Terry, I think, is a great testament, and Mona too, because they've been doing this for a long time with me, is that, you know, Terry from the get-go, and Amy too, who's not on, they too have, like, Amy's down, what was her total at the end? I'm confusing it with one of my other clients too, one of my private clients, but she's down, I think, like, it was like 26 pounds or something. And she was unable to move anything. She's like, I tried it all. I did the portion control. I cut carbs. I did this, I did that. And then we went through this and it was like the light bulb went off. Right. And I know Terry's gone through the same process too, is that identifying the foods that work with you, but it takes time to figure that out. You know, like they're 6, 9, almost a year in and still learning, right? Because your hormones change every single month. And then you throw in, now you know, I'm looking out my window and you can barely see, right? Then you throw in environmental changes. Then you throw in a new season that's coming with fall. The barometer changes, your body adjusts to that and might take some time. So that's the most annoying thing about weight loss, is that we don't take those things into consideration because we assume it's all calories in and calories out. Right? If I lift heavier, I'm going to look like her. If I push further, I'm going to look like her. Right? But her and you have a whole different genetic makeup. So your response to that type of lifting or that intense of a workout is going to be different. And so I always say her, because my her is me in my early 30s or late 20s, right? When like your metabolism was like, boom, you know, and you could curl 20 pounds. You're like, look at my guns, you know? And I'm like, well, look at them after, like, you know, curling 3 and 5 pound weights and my elbows don't hurt anymore, you know? So those are kind of all the things to factor in. But here was something really, well, before I go into that, does that kind of help you out as far as like the long-term play? Okay. And then, you know, we'll make sure. So I said at the beginning of this call is, you know, I want to make sure that I can meet the needs of everybody as best as possible. And I know these calls are tough to make on a Friday. So I will be kind of shifting them around, kind of testing some things to see what works, because I want to get as many of you on as I can. But I also know with time zones and all that kind of stuff. But also it's very critical in the first 4 weeks that I get one-on-one time with those that really are like, okay, this adjustment period is really challenging, right? Because the first 2 weeks are like vacation, you know, you're like, oh, not vacation, but you're just like, oh my God, this is amazing. This is like a miracle. And then all of a sudden week 3 sets in, you're like, what the hell? Like who pumped the brakes? Who pulled the plug? Like, I don't get it. I am doing everything. I'm eating my healthy foods, the ones that are friendly to my system. And life just gave you the double middle finger, right? Well, not life, but just the scale. Sometimes that could be life. So here's what happens. a multitude of things. And it also goes back to your hormone cycle, right? So you can have amazing results in 2 weeks because you've probably done something pretty dramatic, right? In the 2 weeks, it's different from where you came before. And the same goes for when we go on vacation, right, Terry? And we ate and drank like we were in college, right? You know, maybe not like doing stupid stuff, but we had a great time and it was worth everything. And then you come back and you recognize that you kind of took an extra 5 to 8 pounds of water weight. You didn't put on 5 to 8 pounds of fat, but you change something drastically in 3 or 4 days, all that water weight's going to go away. But then you kind of get to that like, you know, down and up, or just nothing. So here's something I'm going to read to you guys. It was a science lesson on fat loss. Okay. And I'll post it in the group just because I think reading it and having that visual can be really powerful. So many times we reach a plateau after 3 weeks of a healthy new lifestyle, right? And not that new to a lot of you guys, because most of you ate healthy to begin with. And it's because there's a temporary gain in water weight while you're still losing body fat. And here's why. The fat that you're hoping to lose must be used for energy, right? So we know that fat is a major energy source for a sustainable weight loss. So to use it, your body must combine it with oxygen, because it has to oxidize it, to make carbon dioxide and water, right? Not carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide. This is a great science lesson for you guys. The carbon dioxide will be exhaled quickly. So we know that we exhale out carbon dioxide, right? So your body's kind of like continuing to cycle through this oxygen process, right? So the carbon dioxide will be exhaled quickly, but the water takes a little bit longer to leave the cells. So the water, it's not just, it's sitting in your cells, right? Our body is made up of a cajillion million cells and they constantly turn over, right? Sometimes they get pushed over quickly, sometimes they don't, but the water sits in your cells longer. That will eventually go away, right? Because it's temporary. So a lot of us don't understand that that is a process, right? So you start on this hub of eating really, really healthy for 2 weeks, and then some adjustments happen. Again, your cells are still trying to rejuvenate, but also your hormones are like, haha, you basically, right? Depending on where you're at, or your husband, you know, or your boss or something elevates that cortisol level, that stress hormone, right? All of a sudden your body just goes, I'm going to hold on to that because I am in like, I don't know what the hell is going to happen next. I'm so stressed out. I don't know if I'm coming or going, right? So now you have that layer, like not only is your body trying to do the cell regeneration and the cell turnover and release the carbon dioxide from the cells, now it's holding on to the water because it doesn't know what the hell to do next, because now you have this like anxiety or the stress in your life. Okay. So the rest of it, not many people understand this process. So they give up on the healthy adjustments they've made in their lifestyle in just 2 or 3 weeks. That's why so many people burn out on doing plans, 21-day plans, 4-week plans, because in 2 weeks, the things change. So trying to eat and tell you to eat the same thing every single day or eat this thing for 4 weeks, you're going to burn out, because 2 weeks it's going to be like amazing. And then week 2 and 3 come and all of a sudden it gets harder because they don't take into account that your body is wired so much differently than this piece of paper, right? Because I am no expert in the entire world could know how to serve a vast difference in genetic makeup to say some, you know, to have this perfect plan. You're the only ones that are going to be able to negotiate that yourselves, because we're different. We all like different foods. We want different foods. Like if I told you to guys, I mean, I've said this before, if I told you guys to go eat snails, right? Because it is like the most amazing food and protein, whatever. I mean, they're not, I'm just using a really like obscene example. And all the foods that you hate were on this plan that were just guaranteed to give you the figure of your life that you've been dreaming for, but you hated every single thing. Now you have such a restrictive and like not enjoyable experience right out of the gates because you see all these foods that you just can't stand, right? I didn't know that was a challenge with Melissa when she was starting, and I wanted to talk about something that she brought up too. Because now you're like, oh, this is going to be miserable. I hate this. I hate snails. I hate eating liver and onion, you know, like just all the things. Like if there's that association with hating something, all of a sudden this is a miserable process. That's why I really emphasize the fact that you guys have to be willing to be science experiments, because you want the foods that you are going to be able to sit down and enjoy with your spouse or with your family, and that you know is going to be a part of your everyday life. And fitting them in is still going to happen as long as, you know, you're not sitting down and you love hot dogs and French fries. Like, you know, that's probably not going to be sustainable. Right. So that's why I'm super passionate about this whole kind of presentation of it, and in reminding everybody that we need to be a science experiment. Right. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So Melissa had brought up something interesting, and we had a lot of great feedback. And I know she's not on live. I wasn't sure if she was able to catch this, but so we talked a lot about intuitive this week, right? I wanted to remind us that it's okay to go back to being intuitive. It's okay to go back and listen to your body. It's okay to go back and realize, hey, you know what? It's been 3 hours and I'm not hungry. Great. Don't eat then, right? So she had said, hey, should I eat? I'm not even hungry. It was 9:15 or 9:30, whatever time she posted. And great. You know, I do think that your body's going to get to a point, obviously, you know, there's so many theories out there about fasting, and I'm not talking about intermittent fasting or any of that, you know, and that's why I don't teach intermittent fasting, because it's not for everybody. And I explained that earlier in the week too. But when we're intuitive and we're in tune with our body and its energy level, so that's what I always go back to. It's like, okay, so we'll use her as an example. If she's not hungry till 10 o'clock, but she is on, like, her energy is up, her mood is up, she's productive, she's hydrated because she's drinking enough water, she had a great night's sleep the night before, or has a good night's sleep that night and through the next day, then maybe that's kind of her sweet spot. Or maybe it's okay a couple times a week or a couple times of the month that her eating gets pushed out a little bit, because that shift could just kind of like shake the cage a little bit of your body. So we get so routine oriented and, okay, well, I got to do my workout at this hour. I mean, I'm just speaking to myself because, you know, that's how I've been. I would get up at 4:30, I would drink my pre-workout, and then I would be down there at 5 o'clock. And over time, especially COVID, I'm like, screw it. I'm going to go in I'm going to do an hour later. And it's actually been amazing. And lately I've been doing my workouts at 11 in the afternoon, in the morning, which is so unlike me. But I've had like an insane amount of energy, and my mood has been that much different. And I've shifted because obviously I wouldn't be eating right before I worked out. So I've been shifting my eating, and I'm on my period towards the tail end, TMI. Sorry if there's any males in the, Mona, hopefully your husband's like earmuffs. But I have not felt bloated. I have not gained weight. I've been, all things considering, you guys, you know, I'm homeschooling my kids and all of the rest of them are home too. I haven't lost my shit. And this is always the time that I will lose. I mean, like, you know, when I say lose my shit, like literally I want to throw a computer out the window. It doesn't happen often, but you know, like my whole demeanor, like my whole, just like my energy has shifted. And so I've made adjustments accordingly, and it's working for me because I've just been listening. I've been walking the walk. I've been listening to my body. I'm not ever been the one that can wake up and start eating at 7 o'clock. I used to force myself when I was testing a program that was on-time nutrition, but I didn't like it. I didn't feel good. I felt full all the time. I never got hungry. So I want to encourage you guys, like, be okay with getting hungry, and don't be attached to having to eat at a certain time. Don't feel like you have to plan your whole day. If you are going to go out, if you're going to work, or you have a meeting or something, like if you know that you need to function for the meeting and you need to be energized and you know what energizes you, great. But don't feel like you need to plan your day around eating, like, okay, well, I have a meeting at 10, so I need to eat at 9:45 so I can go into my meeting at 10, or I'm driving or, you know, a kid needs to go somewhere, hop in the car and go. You know, we get so connected to a time frame that it tends to basically backfire, because now we've added, here it is again, that level of stress to eating that might be disrupted by somebody needing something before we eat, right? Because if you think about it, you go what, an entire 7, 8, 9 hours without eating. So you could probably stand to wait an extra hour if it's out of your, 2.5, 3.5 hour eating cycle, right? That's why we talked about snacks, is they don't have to be. And I think Debbie made a great comment. One day she didn't eat a snack and she felt amazing, or she didn't feel as bad. She thought she was going to need that fuel. Sometimes you need it. Sometimes you don't, right? So if you go back to the hormone thing, and Elaine, that's what we were talking about at the beginning of this call, is if you go back to that, you'll find like at the top of your cycle, so that follicular cycle after you're menstruated, your body doesn't require the amount of calories that it does when you're menstruating or when you're about to menstruate. So sometimes you can kind of shift things around. And Terry, I was going to tell you this too, I'm sorry that you weren't feeling well this week, but as you're kind of figuring out what's going on hormonally, and if you are hitting menopause and you know that for sure, then it might be worth adjusting some of your macronutrients. And I say that lightly in that I'm not a macronutrient, weigh this, measure that, percentage of this, calories that. But when your hormones are kind of going through a cycle, oftentimes that energy source needs to come from more fat, right? Needs to come from avocados and coconut oil and extra virgin olive oil and walnuts and almonds, and olives. Oh my God, I was eating olives just randomly. And I'm like, oh my God, this is really good and satisfying, right? So rely on the carbohydrates from your vegetables, because we got to be eating a lot, and leafy greens, all the colors that you can get. And you're really good at producing these incredible meals, Terry, but start thinking about, like, if your energy is shifting, and Mona, this could work for you too, is how much fat are you consuming? Are you getting enough? Because a lot of, programs out there will tell you that too much fat is going to backfire. Too much fat backfires if you're having too many carbohydrates, grain carbohydrates, because it's that insulin. And the insulin and the fat, they just kind of start to get confused in layman's terms. And so they're like, well, I'm going to take that and store it, because fat is a great energy source, but we're holding on to more fat because now the insulin is getting adjusted, right? Whereas healthy fat keeps us full and satisfied. Protein is a huge energy source as well. And carbohydrates are that quick energy source, and will spike the insulin a little bit, which is why, occasionally having them at dinner and sometimes having them just for breakfast or lunch is actually okay, and playing around with it, not being conditioned to be like, okay, well, I'm only allowed to have my carbs here, because if I have them here, then that's bad. Like, it's not bad. We've all gone through and had rice, and it was amazing, because the next day we were like, oh, I'm down a pound and a half. This is amazing, right?
I have a question. Are seeds a macronutrient, like pumpkin seeds or sunflower seeds?
100%. Pumpkin seeds, sunflower seeds, chia seeds. Chia seeds have amazing antioxidants. Hemp seeds come with protein. So a lot of the seeds and nuts, everything when I say seeds or nuts should be raw, right? And sometimes we do well with raw, sometimes we don't. So roasted and salted, obviously they're processed, so your body may react accordingly, maybe it won't. But raw pumpkin seeds are awesome. We put them on the salads. Some raw sunflower seeds. It's kind of hard to find raw sunflower seeds all the time. So if you can get them unsalted, that's better. Chia
Trader
seeds.
Joe's.
Trader Joe's has them raw.
So what do you think about quinoa? Or I never pronounce that right.
It's
quinoa.
right, quinoa.
Is it? Okay.
Unless it's not. I don't know. I've always called it that.
No. Would that be, I've been doing this week, it's like my brat diet, quinoa with the carrot and beet, and then with seeds on it. And I heat it up. So I don't heat the carrots, but the carrot and beet salad, but I put it on there and it kind of warms it. So, but it's been really it's because I can't take a lot of spices right now. So I don't know if you were to look at that kind of a meal, what would your thoughts be on that?
Well, they're all real food.
Right.
Quinoa is a complete protein, so it's an amazing source for vegetarians and vegans. So it's just, it goes back to the combination, right? So if you have an
Mhm.
excessive amount of carbohydrates and then you're having, you know, too much protein or too much healthy fats, and all of a sudden your body's kind of in a tailspin, right? So
Mhm.
that's why it's hard for people to be a little bit vegan and a little bit not, because the protein sources and the carbohydrates get intermixed and confused, and your body's kind of on an overload of carbohydrates, but yet is it supposed to be used as a protein, but it's not, because you're having eggs and then you're having a ton of beans. But simply, quinoa is one food,
Mhm.
your beets and your carrots are one food, and your pumpkin
Mhm.
seeds are one food, right?
Mhm.
So the
Mhm.
combination of them is quite lovely, as long as your
Okay.
body thinks that. And sometimes your body's going
Mhm.
to crave it and want it, and it's going to feel great. And even the quinoa breakfast is awesome. I
Mhm.
think it's on one of our meal plans. I think it was last month or in the summer. But quinoa cereals are awesome too.
Cool.
I don't think there's any like whole food that's bad, right?
Mhm.
Unless it's been altered, processed, whatever. That's when it becomes bad. That, and when I say bad, it just becomes challenging for our systems to take in and break down. And that's really what we'll need, is we need our bodies to be able to break down the food so it can be adequately put through the bloodstream and delivered to the organs that it needs, and also be burned off in a timely manner instead of stored as fat.
Cool.
That help?
Yes, thank you.
Good, good. Anything else? Any other questions, or do you elaborate on anything? I'll take that as a no. So I will, did you have something, Aline?
Yes, I would like to know, so clear, when I work out, I know that usually working weight training works for me. It
Okay.
works for me. But now, since I've started with the trying to get the food with it, it's like a little confused. I think my body is just confused. And so when I want to, for example, put on more weight and more muscle mass, is it using just the basic food list that we have? Do you think that it can work, or
Um,
should I?
yeah, I mean, it depends on what your goal is. You know, if wanting to put on more muscle mass for anything in particular, or just because you like you feel better when you have more muscle mass on you.
I usually feel better, more energy, and
Okay.
I mean, it's just something that I like and that used to work for me, but now that I get closer to 40, I'm not sure anymore.
That's about when it started to shift for me too, sadly. Because I loved lifting. I mean, you know, there's nothing more satisfying to like be lifting heavy shit, honestly, right? Like you just kind of feel badass. Um, so if you're wanting to put on more muscle mass, then you're just going to have to adjust your proteins a little bit. You know, because you think about people that are, you know, training for figure competitions, which I joke about that, or training for, you know, and I joke lightly in that we're all not in here training for a figure competition necessarily, right? We just want to feel better in our own figures. So, but those that are training for something specific, meaning they are training to put on muscle mass, they are training to cut their figure down in for something, then the food gets a little bit more manipulative, right? Like you do have to manipulate timing, you have to manipulate the macros, you know. There's a lot of, you know, talk on what you're increasing muscle mass, then you have to peel back on fats, which I don't necessarily agree. So you're just going to have to kind of manipulate those foods and those macronutrients, because if you're lifting heavy, then your body is going to be depleted, right, from those blood sugars. So you need to replete, total technical term, right? You need to replenish your body with the adequate insulin for energy, right? So enough that it gives you enough insulin and energy so it doesn't, you know, hit this huge spike. So all those things, you know, you kind of have to go down a different category just to kind of make sure that you're not harming your body with mass, with, you know, increasing that muscle mass and not eating enough calories, because that's going to backfire quickly.
Yeah.
That makes
Okay.
sense. And I don't say,
Mhm.
I mean, and then I hate saying the word calorie because I don't want anything to be attached to a calorie. Like, okay, well, I only eat 1,200 calories. right? Like, ugh. One day you might eat 900 calories, but yet you were so full and so satisfied and so energized. And then, you know, the next week you might eat 2,200 calories and you're so satisfied and you're so full of energy and you sleep amazing. Like, it's funny how the body can just acclimate
Mhm.
if we let
Okay.
it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Well, hey, if you guys have any other questions or anything, please don't hesitate. Reach out to me. Let me know. Once I get confirmation on when I have childcare set up, I will be setting up those one-on-one calls with you guys that need it. But I will be popping in next week. Obviously, every day we're going to talk a little bit more about insulin and all that kind of fun stuff. Just, you know, more like basic knowledge, you know, chewing your food stuff that was, you know, I know some of you guys like, thank you for posting that on grazing and snacking, because it's easy just to kind of get into those patterns. And those are the kind of things that like just can be, when you hear it at the right time, can shift the needle in the right direction. And that's my hope. All right.
Awesome.
Hey.
Okay. I appreciate you guys. Bye, Mona.
Thank you.
I love it. Seeing you there. Peace
Bye.
out. Bye, Amy. Bye,
Bye.
Terry. Feel better, Terry. Bye, Aline.
All right.
Have a good
Yeah,
sleep.
hope you feel
See you
better.
guys.
Bye.
Bye.